How's everybody doing tonight? Shout out to my man Chris. No, it's 9 o'clock. It's not an hour and early. Give me a one in the chat if you can hear me. So let me get the slideshow up. Struggle streaming. Gonna get it going. Give me one in the chat if you can hear me. Ooh, man, it is burning up in Indiana in the Midwest. So Pivio got his little walk on. He tired. He gonna make it though. You see it right there. IRS Pub 1075. We're going to talk about the tax ecosystem. Appreciate you, Jeff Morris. Shout out to LinkedIn. Thank you for joining me. You know how we do it. If you got any tech questions or cybersecurity questions, just drop them in the chat. So most people know me, Professor Black Ops. My specialty is NIST 800-53. The IRS Pub 1075 sits on top of NIST and adds its special agency requirements. So once again, one of my favorite compliances. Once again, I've been doing Pub 1075 forever. And all the jobs I got lately, probably the last 12 to 15 years, it was because of IRS Pub 1075. Am I early? Early night. It's 9 p.m. here. Let me check my phone unless my computer time's out. I'm actually thinking about moving it to 7. It's 9. It's 9 in the Midwest. Once again, shout out to my man Cam, doing great videos. I try to share them. Shout out to Regine, supporting the old people. Appreciate you. So let's get it in and get it out. So once again, we're gonna just touch on NIST 800-53 and Pub 1075 sits on top of NIST 800-53, and you will see it coming up. I always call NIST 800-53 a base compliance. Then the agency takes that base and adds to it. And we're going to see a couple of slides that kind of shows that and goes through that. Once again, if you can go out there and Google it, IRS Pub 1075, it's out there. It gives you the IRS mission statement at the top. American taxpayer, top quality service. Their mission statement: the mission safeguard is promote taxpayer confidence in the integrity of the tax system by ensuring the confidentiality of your IRS information provided to federal, state, and local agencies. Safeguard verify compliance with the IRS code, IRC 6103P4. Safeguard requirements through the identification and mitigation of any risk of loss, breach, or misuse of federal tax information, aka FTI, held by external government agencies. So a lot of other government agencies use the federal tax information. Why is that? A lot of times, if you owe the feds, they're going to take your federal tax return. So they send you these offset files, meaning we're gonna garnish your wages, right? So they send files to probably 6 or 7 of the big state agencies. So that's kind of one reason I got into it. There's a lot of private work, people bidding on federal IRS work. I think the IRS got some crazy amount of money about 8-9 years ago. So a lot of the state agencies were hired consultants. Once again, I was consulting at the state of Indiana for 10 years. That's a long run for a consultant doing this type of compliance. Once again, that's kind of my specialty. So, once again, if y'all got any questions, put them in the chat. Oh yeah, Jabron, nice to see you, man. I've seen you in a while. Yeah, it is. I can't complain, man. Just trying to make it in this cold, cruel world. But now everything's pretty good with me. Just gonna check my man out, Jabron. I think we met on Black Heights, aka Elevate to New Heights. I think is his new channel name. Everybody's switching it up a little bit. So once again, most people know I'm a NIS 800-53 guy. Provides a catalog of security and privacy controls for all United States federal information system, except those related to security. It's published by NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology, which is a non-regulatory agency of the United States Departments of Commerce. I always forget that it's under Commerce. NIST develops and issues standards, guidelines, and other publications to assist in the Federal Information Security Monitoring Act of 2014, aka FISMA. That's actually how I really got in compliance. I was doing a FISMA system for the Department of DoD, and we started doing compliance, security, hardening. We call them STIGs. So that's really how I got into the technical part of compliance. Then once again, my boss moved to the state agency and invited me for her to come and work for her. So that's really how I got into IRS Pub 1075. Once again, I start off at NIST. IRS Pub 1075 sits on top of this. So once again, I've been doing those two for 20 years, which is crazy. So NIST 800-53R5, the 20 security families. Just gonna rip through these real quick. So that's one reason I like this. It hits really every part of the organization, every part of the security compliance. Most, I think, compliance hits is on pieces of these or parts of those. CMC 171, I think, is 12 families, I believe. I need to double check on that. Even if you look at HIPAA. So once again, 53 is a broad. What's up, Bionic Kraken? Hopefully I said that right. But once again, that's why I like this, because you hit all these families. I was gonna read them, just check them out though. So, and I got videos, I think, on each one of these security families. Shout out to Cam. I don't want to have all the, but Cam's got quite a few on his. So check out my channel. Go check out his channel. You can drop your channel if you want to, Cam. Do you have a wrench, Cam? I guess I need to check. You got a wrench? I don't know if Cam has it. Let me know if you got a wrench, Cam. I guess I could. Yeah, let me know. I'm multitasking, but so yeah, once again, and we touch on a lot of those. And once again, I got videos on all of these. You go check out my compliance playlist. I think Chris said I got like 60 hours out there. So touching on kind of each one of these families, and I'm probably going to go back through and drill down a little deeper into each one of those. And if you look at the NIST, this is how they break down their security family. So you have the control identifier, control name, base control. You see there where it says organizationally defined parameters. That's what I mean by base security compliance. So the organization be the IRS, FBI, HIPAA, and High Trust, because there's NIST 866 out there. C just once again for the state police and FBI. So there's probably 6 or 7 agencies, once again, that sits on top of this. And once again, it drills down into the control enhancements. Once again, right there, you see organizationally defined. And I really like this layout because it gets super detailed. Because if you look at the discussion, right, it tells you pretty much organizations consider the types of auditing to be performed and audit processing requirements, allocating audit storage capacity, allocating sufficient audit storage capacity, reduce the likelihood of such capacity being exceeded and resulting in potential loss or reduction of audit capability. So, once again, if you get to a certain family, you need the details of it. If you go to the doc, which most people hate, it gets super detailed. That's one reason I really like it, though, right? You don't have to guess. That was one of my favorite. I appreciate you. So yeah. So y'all try to support other people. Shout out to Cam doing great things out there. I got to get my my auditing skills up on my video to catch up with Cam. But let's keep going. Once again, if y'all got any questions, just drop them in the box. Once again, this is the base NIST complaint, NIST security family right here. Once again, you see organizationally defined. We just talking about policy procedures. Here has the time. Once again, organizationally defined. This is the IRS telling you what the organizationally defined is. So up here we have the person. They said designated agency personnel. They put it in bold for you. And once again, designating an agency official. Then here, right here, we was talking about the time. Policies every 3 years or if a significant change. When to review and update. Procedures every 3 years or if there is a significant change. Procedures used to be every year. They pushed it back to every 3. I don't like that. People, I'm going to have to write them a stern letter. I think we need to be checking our procedures every year. But once again, this is the agency defined. We're talking specifically about the IRS. So go back up here, see where it says organizationally defined. Once again, that's why I call it a base security. Then once again, the IRS is going to tell you for their specific one. Then CJIS, once again, which is a criminal justice information system. The FBI flows down to the state police. They have different requirements. So once again, when you focus on NIST and you focus on a particular agency, become a SME on that, right? Then you make a little more money. You got to pass a background check. So if there's any questions while I'm rolling. And once again, federal tax information is critical and important to continuously protect taxpayer information as regarded by the IRS. Now, the thing I get questions asked a lot is, what's the difference between a social security number from the IRS and a social security number from the state? Right? If your state tax people give you a social security number, it's not FTI because they didn't get it. You see it right there in red. They didn't directly get it from the IRS, right? So when the IRS gives you data, and a lot of times if you're a state agency, you use the Fed to bump up against AGI. The federal gives you offset, meaning this is how much they're going to get if you want us to grab their tax return. So if the federal IRS gives you data, which is FTI, you got to protect it, aka IRS Pub 1075, to be able to qualify to get that data. And if you don't, and you get audited every 3 years, right? So that's kind of the good thing and bad thing about it. So you see there, right there, the second paragraph. FTI includes return or return information received directly from the IRS or obtained through an authorized secondary source, such as, and these would be other organizations I said in the state would get them. Social Security Administration, SSA, Federal Offices of Child Support, OSC, Bureau of Fiscal Services, or Medicaid and Medicare, CMC. Because when I was at the state, it was like 6 agencies that got federal tax data directly from the IRS, and we would get audited every 3 years. And Booz Allen used to come and just get on you. But once again, derived. But too, if you got data and it's derived from the IRS or obtained through a secondary source, you will have to protect it using IRS Pub 1075. Right, and we're going to look at some of those requirements to that. And once again, all the jobs I probably got in the last 15, I was doing some type of IRS work, meaning they got files, they were trying to get work, they were doing work for state agencies, or I was at a state client helping them prepare for audits. I was usually an internal auditor. My strength is, since I used to program for 10 years, I usually work with development teams to make sure they're hardening the way the IRS work with the different infrastructure teams, work with the DBAs, and now currently getting very familiar with the cloud. Everything's in the cloud. So, and we're going to look at some AWS, how they want you to harden it for the cloud. Safeguard reviews is on an on-site remote or combination of hybrid evaluation of the use of FTI and measured employees by receiving agencies. And its agents were authorized to protect data. So safeguard reviews, like we were talking about, a lot of times Booz Allen would come on site. During COVID, they actually did a remote. You see it right there, on-site reviews, disclosure enforcement specialists, cybersecurity reviewers, management official will conduct an on-site evaluation of the security and privacy controls implemented by the agency or supporting parties. Remote reviews, disclosure enforcement specialists, once again, reviewers, will conduct a remote evaluation of security and privacy controls implemented by the agency and all supporting agencies. So the big thing is, if you got third parties doing third party works, like we have people to print checks. Uh, Now most people do direct deposits, but there's a small segment of population that want paper checks. So those are thousands of checks. So we had a check, bulk check printer, right? So we got to make sure they're at the same security level as us to do that type of work. And we've been talking about third party assessments and making sure those go appropriately. Once again, drop your questions, tech or cybersecurity in the box. We'll get to it. Part of the IRS series test systems we were talking about containing FTI, federal tax information. We got to make sure they have protection mechanisms. And here's development, integration, and staging. And here's our production systems, right? So we do development, then we integrate it with our system, then we would stage it, then we would push it to production. But half the time, though, which is not good, most of the clients I work for, they use live data in development, which really irks me. We should be doing way more synthetic data. Um, but most people take a subset of production and push it down to pre-production. So now our pre-production's got to be at the same security level as production, which, to be honest, I always make pre-production at the same security level because we need to test to make sure we're not going to break anything in production from a cybersecurity perspective, right? And when you talk about that, we talk about everything: networking, databases, cloud systems, third-party systems, integration, flat files. When you work at a large agency, you moving a lot of files. So once again, which the crazy thing is, the IRS lets you do it. You just have to send them a letter and let them know you're doing it. I think so. When they come in on their assessment, they know they need to assess tests at the same level as production. Right. And this one thing we usually talked a lot about is the logging in from a thin client to your production, VDI virtual desktops. Long story short, if you're not using agency-owned equipment or corporate equipment, a lot of people like to log in from home. You can't use personal equipment. But if you're using a virtual desktop, you could use your own personal equipment, right, from a thin client perspective. So we're trying to push our admins and our privileged users into a video. Much easier to secure, but it's easier to patch. So once again, that's their VDI that they kind of recommend for your privileged users. And shout out to Chris. AWS has a thin client. It's like a cube for $150. Then really all your work is, once you log into your virtual desktop inside AWS, your virtual desktop has all the power in your apps and your work. So your thin client is usually just $150. Usually it's like a Google Cloud. You just go in, right? And all your, once again, all your infrastructure's in there. I think I'm going to order one just to see really what's that like. Let's see if we could do that. Yep, facts, thorough details. Once again, I know I got 100 hours of videos on this. So, because they got those special publications, and I probably got 20. 20 videos on special publications on this. That's one reason I like this. So they got a web server special publication. Really probably the third quarter is almost it. Fourth quarter this year, I'm gonna definitely dig into Dockers and Kubernetes. I'm kind of weak on that from compliance and architecture and security. So, and a lot of people running containers. So I'm definitely late on a container game. Yep. Shout out to Chrome, but I appreciate that. I was struggling to remember Chrome, but 100% right. So yeah, it's similar to the Chrome, but um, so once again, I like that. And two, wherever you go, most people you're gonna have a network connection. So I'm definitely gonna order one of those thin clients and just kind of use it at that definitely as a backup system, right? If something happens. So let's see, keep rolling. People struggling today. Once again, this is our cloud. I'm just kind of confused. I didn't know it was right there. So we know we're going in the cloud. IRS Pub 1075 has their cloud checks. This is a standard three-tier architecture. I always talk about this. Kind of old web server, app server, your database at the bottom. Your standard relational database. So from IRS Pub 1075s, you're going to have checks on your networking, your elastic load balancer. These are EC2, so that could be Windows or Linux. So you got checks for those. Jump down to your RDS, Oracle, SQL Server. A lot of people do Postgres. So you got checks for those. I know Windows 2022 operating system, I think there's 310 checks for that. So once again, you got to make sure you're hard and make sure you're at a certain level. And then when we scan for it, right, we get a score to see where you're at and what you need to fix, right? So you got to remember, compliance is just kind of like quarterbacking it. I don't log in and patch people OS, even though I could. That's not, that's one thing, separation of duties. I don't want to do the work and say, "Ooh, the work is great," right? So we kind of like to separate those, and that's what value add a lot of times that GRC has, because a lot of times most DBAs and essays don't know what those requirements are, what those hardening scripts are. They harden, they just don't know specifically. The schisms is for the IRS, STIG is for DOD, CIS checks is for CGIS. I think SOX is CIS level 1. So a lot of times I think GRC's perspective is once again give those requirements to those different divisions and once again let them handle it. A lot of times when you scan and you get findings, these are the 4 levels of findings you can have under the IRS. DOD usually has 3. Low, medium, high. The IRS has 4. Limited, moderate. You can read it there. Significance and criticals. Right. A lot of things you can accept risk on or have compensating controls. A lot of times, if you have criticals, they want you to fix them as is, right? They're critical for a reason. On the CVEs, they're probably 9 and above. They're usually being attacked in the wild. They're known by a lot of hacker organizations. Even script kiddies know how to attack those. Shout out to the TAP. So those, once again, when you scan from an IRS perspective, specifically the schism checks, those are what you get, right? Then you would lay those out, and we're doing videos out. We'll scan some stuff, get the criticals, kind of link them to what the DBAs or SAs or cloud guys need to fix. So that's the cool thing about it. They tell you exactly what they want you to fix on them. Data breach. So this is a data breach term. It's not limited to the occurrence where a person other than an authorized user potentially access FTI by means of network intrusion, targeted attack, exploited vulnerabilities. At the bottom, you see some common examples. A laptop portable storage device storing FTI is stolen or lost. When I used to work at the state agency, at least once a year, somebody went out to dinner and forgot their laptop was in their back seat, came out and their windows were busted. So that was definitely one of the trainings we put in there. And emails, we a lot of times you see emails that went out that had taxpayer information in. You can't send regular emails out with taxpayer information. You can email it out, but you need to encrypt the attachment. There's certain ways you can email it out to be able to do it. But once again, just known breaches. So yeah, if you look at this, this is minimal protection for a data center. A couple years ago, somebody asked me about protection for a data center and what would that look like for NIST and the IRS. I had to dig it up. I didn't know. So secure perimeter, I guess I'm not confused, but perimeter is enclosed in a slab to slab wall constructed of durable materials, supplemented by periodic inspections. Security room has been constructed of resist force entry. Entire room must be enclosed by slab to slab walls constructed of approved material. Badge employees doing business are authorized personnel has a secondary barrier between FTI and unauthorized individuals. Security container is a storage turtle vault or a locked IT cabinet. Right, and I got this question too from somebody reached out and kept once again asked me what would that look like, and I told them go to cloud, man. Don't do you a data center room. But a lot of people do have limited computing power inside their org, and then their major stuff to now go to cloud. Right, and a lot of people are doing hybrid type systems where you got once again some on prem that you can actually extend your network to AWS, and it looks like one big network. So once again, so that's the security requirements for your data center. On some things, once again, they look for a background investigation checks, access control, audit and accountability, media protection. So these are kind of some of the. We saw the 20 families. I think I would call these what they could deem kind of most important from an IRS perspective: physical environment, personnel security, insider threat program. Policies and procedure must address insider threat program that includes cross-disciplinary and insider threat incidents handling teams and a designated senior official. The privacy program, that's something I'm really coming up to speed. Give a shout out to Dwight and Chris. Privacy's, especially since GDPR and CCPA from California, everybody's kind of pushing up to the forefront and digging into privacy a little more. Once again, I dropped the link if anybody want to come up. But yeah, that privacy is something I'm kind of digging in a little more. Shout out to Chris. I don't know if he went to bed. He be getting up super early. But he definitely and Dwight did some good things on privacy. Once again, I've been digging in the CCPA because most people gonna have customers in California. Colorado's has something similar to CCPA. New York DFS has something similar to their privacy because New York is the financial kind of the capital of the world, really. So their privacy's up. So once again, people are making sure your privacy's together from a security program perspective. The background checks, I just kind of always touch on this. FBI fingerprint, it's a little more detailed when you're trying to get data to the IRS. So the fingerprint breakdown results in an identification of possible suitability issues. You could go there. CGIS is the state police. They're the one that handles those type of backgrounds. And the cool thing, CGIS sits on top of NIST 800-53. So check your local law enforcement. Once again, most people have agencies they pay. Citizens and residency validate the subject eligibility to do legal work in the United States. United States citizen, foreign citizen with the necessary authorization. So they kind of walk that too. That's a Form I-9 in the E-Verify system. A lot of time it's free of charge and can be located at that particular website. Offshore operations, FTI, cannot be accessed by agency employees, representative contractors, or subcontractors located outside the legal jurisdiction boundaries of the United States. Outside the United States is territories, embassies, or military installation. If FTI must not be received, processed, stored, or transmitted, systems located off, nor may FTI be sent offshore for disposal. Um, so once again, that federal work, that's kind of why I do. It's kind of hot. Once again, get it done offshore. You gotta have a certain citizenship to do it. The second bullet: some agency may have need for employees to travel internationally for business purposes. Such agency must develop procedures to follow during foreign travel. Bring IT equipment, contain store, laptop, tablets. Agencies process, store, protect, transmission. And we talked about bring your own device. A lot of times we will force them to do the VDI virtual desktop. So where I work, we wouldn't let anybody bring their own devices. A big issue is burning and shredding, especially the shredding. That level of detail on shredding. When I mean detail, that's pretty small. You almost pulverizing it, right? So those shredders are super expensive. So you can outsource that to Shred It. There's a couple big national vendors. Iron Mountain, if you're storing documents in paper folders, they have that level of shredders. So once again, you need to check that. Once again, part of GRC, that's a requirement, right? Do you have vendors that can meet that requirement? 2.4 millimeters security screen. And actually, it was smaller than that, but they figured out it was dust that people would have to wear respirators. So it was crazy when they first came out with that requirement. So a lot of times when I do risk assessment or check vendors, that's one thing I ask them is what level of shredding do they have? And most of them can't answer that question. Right. The big vendors can because they trying to get that federal money. They know what that is. Right? So cloud computing, we know everybody's in cloud computing. So we talked about the big guys. They all have FedRAMP authorization. FTI, Federal Tax Information, may be introducing in the cloud that has been authorized by the JAB, Joint Advisory Board, or federal agency. So if you actually go look in compliance of Azure, AWS, wow, I don't know if Google made that. Last time I checked, they did, but that's probably been a decade ago. They might have. Long story short, they got FedRAMP compliance. If you go out to fedramp.gov, we might do that. You go out there, it'll list what cloud vendors has that particular certification. And two is FedRAMP. Google has data centers around the planet. Only their east and west has FedRAMP approval. So you need to make sure to check that the region you're going into has that FedRAMP authorization, right? I know people know I love AWS. So I personally know their east and west has FedRAMP approval. Trying to get that money, they know what it's facts. They know how to they getting it, not trying to get it. They got it, right? I don't know. I don't know if you know, but I did a video. There was a $9 billion RFP out there. So 4 vendors won it: AWS, Azure, Google. Shout out to Oracle. They won it. So that $9 billion out there, like the Navy had a requirement. I think AWS won, and then there was a couple $100 million. So government agencies can go out there with that $9 billion and send out work, and they will bid on what cloud is the best. So they're getting that money. So once again, onshore access. Agency must leverage vendors and services. All FTI physically resides in systems located in the United States. Access to supported systems and services from the United States. So that's a kind of used to be a problem for them because big vendors used to chase the sun. What does that mean? They would start out in the United States. They would go to India, some other countries. So they had data centers up at 24/7, but a lot of their data centers wasn't in the United States. Because I got in kind of a little kerfuffle with AWS about that. And Google, I got in the shot. They were so cool. They were replicating data to Ireland. I'm like, that's cute, but you can't send IRS data to Ireland. And they were looking confused. I'm like, dude, y'all supposed to be the top Fed guys. So I'm like, dude, we can't do business with y'all. Y'all sending data to Ireland. Now, it's cool if something happened in the whole United States, it was Ireland. But if you read the requirements, you can't do that. Right. So even some of the big vendors were a little confused. Physical descriptions. Agency in their cloud must provide a complete list of all data centers. Shout out to AWS. Oh, shout out to that. Yeah, I did a video on that ITAR problems. Facts. I got a video on ITAR. So somebody asked me to do a video. I get a lot of questions on ITAR with that video. I ain't gonna say a lot. I get about one every couple of weeks. Somebody asks me an ITAR question. The big one is commingling ITAR devices in a shared cage. Can you do that or not? So looking at the requirements, it looked like you can share them in a cage as long as you have a separate label. But a lot of their assessors was pushing back. They wanted them to separate the cage inside the cage. But now, shout out to ITAR. That's weird. A lot of people are not hip to ITAR. I used to work at DOD. That's the only reason I remember. We had one system that moved ammunition around the country, so we had to get that approved. But no, shout out. I got an ITAR video if you need it, man. So it's funny you mentioned ITAR. So let's keep going. We know this data encryption is in transit at rest. That's a cornerstone. I think the FIPS 140 certified encryption that's kind of what's new to a lot of people. And the short FIPS mean the government actually looked at encryption, made sure it was actually AES 256. A lot of dudes in the garage be saying we use an AES 256, but they got that from some unknown place on the internet. So it's like, really, what type of encryption is this doing, and have you tested it? So, but the good and bad thing about that, if it's FIPS 140-3 now improved, it's expensive because I think it costs you like $100K to get it validated by the government, right? So only the big boy plays in that. But shout out to the Open SSL. It's open source, and I think they got that approved. Well, I'm going to back up on that. Oracle got it approved because Oracle was using it in all their stuff, but it's open source. Shout out to Open SSL. Then you see the supplemental guidance down there. If an agency is able to encrypt data in transit at rest using the latest 140 certified solution and maintains some ownership of encryption keys, preventing logical access from the cloud service provider. Then F, we talked about this, 45-day notice. An agency must notify the IRS Office of Safeguard at least 45 days prior to transmitting FTI into a cloud environment per notification, right? So the IRS kind of know what the IRS wants to know what you're doing with their data, and they want to notice. But a lot of times, if you're in the big vendors, they kind of know what that is, right? It's shared responsibility. So once again, just because you put in AWS does not mean it's IRS approved or you were passing audit. What do I mean by that? You can put the data up there, but if you're not using the proper encryption, FIPS 140-3, you would fail an assessment, right? Or shout out to T, if you have data in the S3 bucket and you can reach it from the internet, you would fail it. All their traffic must go through the AWS internal internet called private links, right? So you cannot connect to an S3 bucket from the internet. You have to go through your tenant to be able to connect to that bucket, and force you to go through their tenant. 9 times out of 10, you got to authenticate to be able to do that. So that's why those are some of the checks. We're going to look at a couple of checks coming up. Once again, I dropped the link if anybody wants to come up. Here's some more checks. I'm just going to hit them at the high level. This is a big one. I think a lot of people sleep on. Service level agreements and contract. You need to have security language in those contracts. All right. Data isolation, risk assessment, persistence of data and relieved assets. We know the big one, MFA, you got to have some multi-factor authentication on it. You see it right there. agencies must implement sufficient multi-factor authentication when their cloud solution is available from the internet. There's access to the cloud solution from outside the internet trusted network. If the cloud can only be accessed from an agency internal network, multi-factor authentication must be implemented by an agency solution when establishing remote connection. And once again, the security control implementation, we were looking at the 20 security families, right? Those are the customer-defined security and privacy controls. Must be identified, documented, and implemented. Least privilege, one of the standard ones. And I like that once again, when you go on the NIST or the IRS, it tells you what is specifically IRS defined, which is control enhancements on top of that. Right? IRS defined prohibits account administrative privileges, including local administrative admins, from web browsing and other internet connections outside of local protected boundaries, unless such risk is accepted by the CISO. Another IRS defined block accounts with administrative privileges, including local administrator, from accessing emails unless such risk is accepted in writing by the agency. So a lot of times I used to do Unix. I used to be a web admin. So when we call it sudo, switch to your administrative rights. So I used to be a web admin. I've been as PBO, then I got to do some admin work. I switch users, and that switch users, the sysadmin, they would say these are the 20 high-level things you can do as a web admin, right? I could tar a file, create a directory, remove a directory, start off a couple ports, right, that are privileged port, because a lot of times web servers run on 80. That's a privileged port. So they would let me start stuff on 80 and shut it down, right? But that sudo list would give me those commands. And once I sudo a block, I couldn't email or send mail or any of that out of that account, right? Because with bad guy kind of account, theoretically, they can email their database out, right? So they want to separate that to, once again, least privilege, make it a little harder for you to steal stuff. And his retention schedule, a lot of times is GRC, we have to come up with the retention schedule. So where do we get that? You see it right there. Everything is pretty much 5 years. Formal agreements, FTI logs, bulk transfer, converted media. But that means we be keeping data in boxes and warehouses for 5 years. It used to be 7. I think they reduced it about 4 or 5 years ago. But those are the retention requirements. Because a lot of times people say, okay, we got to save stuff. How long? PBO got the answer. PBO's got the answer for that. Shout out to my man Ty. You all good, Ty? You all good? Let's say, is it fair to say FTI specific requirements or where Pub 1070 go? Pub 1075 goes. Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Once again with the shredding, but two is from that perspective, the IRS, and if you're doing CJIS, which is FBI, HIPAA and high trust, those requirements are what they believe is most important as an agency, right? So I think, but yeah, it's definitely goes beyond. But remember, NIST says agency defined, right? So the agency defining that now is the IRS, right? So as part of FedRAMP 2, right? That's really this 800-53 in the cloud. So when it says organizationally defined, that organization, of course, FTI is the IRS, CJIS is the HIPAA. Once again, they tell me what they believe is most important. Some of that stuff I kind of disagree with, but once again, it's their requirements. So that's what I try to not try, but that's what I'm going to implement. And two, I tell people they want this. I think we need to be here at a higher level security because that's not high enough, right? And your risk tolerance and what you believe as a company organization, you can always supersede the baseline of security. This really just like you talked about. NIST 800-53, IRS Pub 1075 is their requirements, right? From the base requirement. Then what you as an organization want to do, right? You can't do less, but you can always do more, right? So once again, I dropped the link if anybody wants to come up. I am running out of gas. I've been trying to walk and work out a little bit. I forget. I'm old. I'm old. So once again, just a quick architectural diagram. The big thing here is you see AWS private link connected to an S3 bucket like we talked about. To get to the S3 bucket, if you looked at the T app, their bucket was open up to the public and internet. So the bad guys stole all of people's information. So this is saying, hey, if you're on a regular internet, you got to go through our AWS virtual private cloud or our tenant, right? And the only way you can get to our bucket is through these app going through that gateway. Same down here, you see VPC and applications. That endpoint means it has to be private. And once again, get to that particular bucket. So I just kind of want to show that, just talk about that a highlight. Oh, facts, man. And it was 90 degrees, which is good and bad. I feel like I was sweating a little weight off, but I was struggling. So once again, people know I'm an AWS guy and an IRS guy. I got a couple AWS certifications, so everybody kind of wants to make sure you're in the cloud. And once again, AWS config is, once again, these are IRS operational best practices for a particular setup. And we're talking about that, the S3 bucket. Public access is blocked, periodic. You see the control there. External boundaries of the system at key internal boundaries within the system. Implement subnets for publicly accessible system components are separated from internal components. Connecting to external networks or information only through managed interfaces. Protection devices and currents. The Amazon, now we're talking specifically about Amazon service. Amazon S3 buckets cannot be publicly accessed. This rule helps keep sensitive data safe from unauthorized remote users by preventing public access. The rules allow you to optionally set ignore public access. So these are the settings they want you to see. So when we scan it, right, got to check to make it set up properly. And this is the technical side of IRS 1075. So if we're in the cloud and we run in the S3 buckets, these are the settings we need to set to make sure we're compliant with the IRS 1075. And us as GRC people, we have to validate that with the tech guys to make sure they know those requirements and those requirements are set up how they're supposed to be. Right. And once again, I think that's senior level movement, but once again, those requirements and how they look, make you so that's kind of it. Like I said, I just kind of wanted to touch on IRS Pubs 1075, something I'm intimately familiar with, something I've been doing forever, and something I worked for the last 15, 16 years. Like the job I have, part of it was understanding those requirements because they bid on work or get data from the IRS. So they wanted somebody who has that knowledge, aka me, to understand 1075 and what would that look like in an audit, right, to make that happen. Once again, I dropped the link. Once again, I'm gonna hang out. I want to appreciate everybody for joining me. Hang out for a few questions. Yeah, Cam, that agency defined it is a bit of an overlap. The cool thing, once again, in this is I call it the base security controls, and that organizationally defined / agency defined, right? And I'll probably do a video. Look, I do got a video out there. I think I looked at the IRS, FBI, and I think CMS. Medicaid office, and they all sit on top of this, and they're like lockout. One was 3 and you locked out. The other ones, every time you log in, you get the double the time. And one of them, you got like 20 tries before you locked out. So each one of those agencies had different requirements, right? And as you in this business for a while, you just get used to seeing those security controls, right? Basically what they are. Because once you look at 1075, those are schisms. FSMA is usually STIGs. CIS level 1 and 2, right? Once you look at those control a couple times and kind of get comfortable with all those, it's just security controls on a device, aka how do you want us to harden this 2022 Windows server, right? And some I have these controls and other have these controls. The thing that sucked that made me a lot better is my boss wanted to do multiple controls and just pick which one is more secure. So we were doing FSMA and STIGs and IRS schisms and just kind of going through and kind of figure out which one of those were tighter level of security and make it match, right? Which was interesting. That's how I became super intimate with the individual controls. Cause I had to go through and map them, which sucked. Which sucked. Because it probably was 1,200 controls altogether for our org. But once again, it helped me get a lot better. And we were looking at GPOs and trying to fix the GPOs and send them to the essays for them to put it on. And so once again, just different GRC job functions depending on how big your org. A lot of times, if you're in a smaller org, they just kind of do everything. You do the GRC, you do the security architecture, right? You do the policies. So a lot of times it's all just kind of bundled together. STIG is the no, STIG is, I'll bring it up real quick. STIG is the DoD version of hardening. I think there's a STIG. There used to be a STIG viewer website. I don't know if they took it down or is this it? Oh no, here it is. Here it is. They redid it. I don't like it. Here, I'll drop it in there. Let's switch up screens. BBL be going live. Just doing it in person. And I'll drop it. I think I could drop that in the chat. Let's see. Oh shit, I need to make that bigger for me. Shout out to the old people. So this is the STIG viewer. So if you look at those are the technology you're doing. So I used to do Apache. We was a Unix shop. So we used to do a Apache server 2.4. So let's dig into that particular one. Server 2025. Let's see if that shows up. Yep. I might still make that a little bigger for me. That's pretty big. So if you look at the top, it tells you it's not many checks on that. It surprised me. So it has 2 highs, 33 mediums, and lows. So it tells you on the high, Apache web server must maintain confidentiality. Got to have your TLS version on. It's got to be 140 dash. That should be 3. I don't know how old this is. So it tells you what you need. Anonymous users accessing to the web server must be prohibited. Let's drill down a little further. So it tells you what you need to check in there to make sure that's cut on, right? So that's what you would give your web server team, right? So so that's the STIG. The STIG's usually from DoD, which was FSMA. A lot of the bigger government sites. That's it's a heavy lift. Let's see. Let's look at let's see if Windows is on here. Man, let's find. Um, 2022. Oh, that didn't work. There it is. So let's talk about Windows. There it is. That's a big boy check. So you got 232. I thought it was 300. I'm 232, 31 highs, 260, 280. So yeah, you about 280-ish, about 290 checks. So the Windows guy's not happy. So you saying I need all these reviewed, right? So it goes through anything in red you got to do. We don't have a compensated control. They want you to get that done, right? So that's it. I put the link in there. So when I say stigs, these are the stigs right here. My favorite, because I think for me that's a heavy lift. I think it's the most secure once again, but that could be being biased because I've done them forever. Um, so that's it. Once again, that's the stigs. Once again, it was 280 Texas, so I was rounded up to 3. Yep, 100%. Yeah, they call it a lot of times checklist guide. So yeah, so that's kind of what I use when I work with small sites. A lot of times people reach out to me and they want to do federal work. I said we gotta get our big boy pants on. We going stigs, right? The reason I like going stigs is it's at the top of the pyramid, and when you present it, most people are impressed because it's a heavy lift. But once again, you got to have a good team to do it. The cool thing is the cloud makes it a little easier because it's a shared responsibilities. But once again, people know, and I got probably 15 videos on sticks, one talking about Red Hat, one talking about Windows, one. I'm an Oracle guy, one going through the Oracle sticks, and a specific right there application and technology. And if you're doing development, last thing we'll do before we shut it on down, I think there's an application check. I know there's an application checklist because I've done it before. So let's go look at. So if your development team's doing custom apps, which a lot of people overlook, there's a checklist for that. So let's look at the app checklist. Application. Oh, there it is. On the verdict. So yeah, this is development checklist. So if you're developing software, what they want to see: default password must be changed. The application when decommissioned. It's a lot of paperwork. Our products must be supported by vendors, right? A lot of people be downloading these modules and using them from the internet from 3 dudes in the garage. I'm like, dude, is it supported? Where's their support team? We want to use commercial support for government development side. I get frowned up because a lot of people use open source software. So where does that fit in there? So once again, I work with a lot of application team. Well, I used to work with a lot of application teams, and I would walk them through this, right? So if you're trying to develop software that you're going to sell to the government or a big hospital, I talked to a couple executives at hospitals. They're like, dudes coming here with no security, no SSP software security plan, right? All this stuff goes in your software security plan of what you're doing as a development. Application must not be vulnerable to SQL injection, right? So that's it. We're just gonna get our toe wet. PBO has been doing this for about 35 years. So, but now I've probably been doing cybersecurity for the last 20, 15. So yeah, but that's kind of it. Once again, I dropped the link if anybody wants to come up. But yeah, that's the Stig's my favorite hardening. Most people don't do it anymore. I get pushback on the net by a lot of people saying it's too hard. I'm saying security's not gonna be easy because the bad guys are beating us up, beating us up. But no, so that's the Stigs. Like I said, Study GRC hears me talk about it all the time. They probably get tired of hearing me. Shout out to Cam. So once again, that's one of my favorites. I always say, do your big boy or go home. The security's not for the weak, right? This is how we need to do it. PHP's good. SQLite is a little lacking on security. So depending on what data you're putting in SQLite, that is a good combo, but SQLite is a little. I haven't looked at it in about 10 years. The last time I looked at it, the security was a lot on the data I move, right? I do federal systems, big systems, because I try to make big money, right? So that's my only pushback on that. Once again, I try to use enterprise level stuff because they're gonna have enterprise level security. Right, but we know money's not infinite. We know talent's not infinite. So you got to use the right tool for the right job. But if I'm doing anything bigger than PII, I'm not putting in SQLite. Mm-mm. You set me up to get sued, Kraken. You set me up to get sued, man. We ain't doing that one. So yeah, but now if you're doing something short, nice, something departmentalish, work groupish, I think it's good. I've used it for thing. A lot of people didn't realize SQLite was inside Apple forever. That they had that as an internal database inside Apple phones. I did a risk assessment with an Apple in the house. One guy didn't know that. He was trying to push back on me. Then the Apple executive was like, excuse me, he's correct. Shout out to me. So facts. So yeah, we gotta love the Stig. We gotta get our Stig viewer. That's a new one too. I like that viewer. I might have to keep that on deck. But once again, I'm a Stig guy. I'm one of my favorite hardenings, especially as a GRC person. Once again, oh, the Stigs. Once again, it's two. Now we're on the other side. I split up GRC and management and technology. Now we're different. I turn on the technology side. What do we need to do to make sure, from a technology side, we're compliant with NIST or the IRS or CGIS or CMMC? Right? What hardening do we need to do to, once again, make sure we're compliant from a technology? One of my favorite boss quote is nobody ever hacked a policy, right? So rubber meets the road is when we harden these databases because that has all the PII in it, the secrets in it, the SSNs, your federal tax information, 9 times out of 10 is stored in the database somewhere. So what are we doing to make sure that database is compliant with that? We don't want to be Ticketmaster, right? They didn't configure Snowflake right, and people got out of their data stone. Or shout out, I think T is the next app that just got hacked, which was crazy. You had people's driver's license in there. Their court cases was in there. So I might do a lunch and learn on that on Thursday. So I'm trying to get my slides ready. PBL just moving slow. Once again, I dropped the link. If anybody wants to come up, PBL running out of gas. And the other big part of that is inventory of your system. So inside your architectures, you should know what Active Directory you run, Apache, Windows OS, right? If we're going to get a list of those, then we can send out STIGs to the various teams, and they would have to harden to that certain level. What they couldn't do because it would break something, right? That would be a finding. Then we got to figure out from an organization, do we want to accept the risk of that finding? No problem. Good night. I'm right behind you. Yeah, I come live every Tuesday night, so I'm easily found. I need to get caught up on my email. I just been out of pocket for a minute. I've been just tired and burnt out. But PBO about to jump back on the scene. He been kind of missing in action, but now I appreciate you for joining. Shout out to my man Risk. Once again, Bionic Show. My man Ty in the house. Cam for joining me. Regine for joining. My man Jeffrey Moore on the LinkedIn side. I need to go over there and check on my LinkedIn people. Once again, I'm struggle streaming as always. And my man Chris, I always helping the old people out. Once again, I want to thank everybody for joining me. You know how to find me. Chris can always ping me. I'll be struggling out here. But yeah, just ping me if you need anything. Check out Chris and Study GRC Coffee with I'm hurting there. Coffee with the people. You can have a free coffee meeting with Study GRC. He's got a time for it. PBL black it out. Struggle trading. But two, if you need to get with me, you can definitely get me over there too. I try to make myself available. Definitely kind of track me down on LinkedIn. And that's all I got. I want to appreciate everybody for joining me. Keep grinding out there. This is a crazy job market. It is not for the weak. So if you're looking, keep looking. Don't get discouraged. There's a time and a place for everything. Sometimes you might have to pivot and come on back, but I think cybersecurity, GRC, tech in general, there's a spot for everybody. I think we need to get the gatekeepers out the way to get some more people in. Once again, I appreciate everybody, and if you're looking for PBO, just let me know. I'm usually hanging out with the GRC Mafia on Study GRC, getting on those guys' nerves. I'll be over there just causing havoc. No, but shout out to them. I'm out. Everybody have a good night. I'll talk to you later. Appreciate everybody for joining me. Ping me